Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah ma ba'd. Politics. Politics is a topic which affects us all, as individuals in this country, as a communal group in this country, as a minority here in the UK. There's a general election that's coming up. I'm sure it isn't hidden to a lot of people. But then there's the international politics, which is the deafening silence from the international politics, which is afflicting the Muslim Ummah. For the people in Gaza, for the people in the West Bank, you can't even call it Palestine anymore, they continue to be depressed because of the international politics, which is afflicting the Muslim Ummah. Everywhere you go, you will be affected by politics, whether you're interested in it or not. Now, there's a lot of frustration when it comes to politics in this country and abroad, when it comes to certain governments, Muslims looking at certain governments, say, why are they doing this? Why are they conservative enough anymore? And even within this country, with this general election coming up, a lot of people are saying, well, there isn't much difference between the two major parties. In actual fact, one is piggybacking off the other, and it doesn't seem as if they've got their own sort of policies. What is going on? What is going on in Europe? What is going on in America? What's going on with certain superpowers, in the different democracies that exist? I don't claim to be a political expert, but I have been interested in politics for a very long time, and I've observed something that is happening across the globe, and it's moving in a direction that I personally have never seen before, and I don't think has ever happened in history before. And it's becoming even more and more apparent than any other time in modern history that I can think of, which is everywhere you go, you've got heavy-handed conservative governments, right-wing conservative governments, whether you call it far-out right-wing, right, or you've got those who are conservative governments. They have settled, they have taken their place, they have been elected in by society maybe, but they're not moving. You can look at certain countries, I don't want to name any names, but there's certain governments that haven't moved for a very long time. They keep winning the election somehow. And then you've got these different parties within society, they're gaining popularity, especially in Europe. So the right wing or the conservative parties come in. And even in this country, the conservative party, I've never seen it being so blatantly racist in my life. But at the same time, look what's happening. They are appeasing the left, the liberal left. So what's happening is that you're creating this polarism where you've got those people who've got very strong right-wing views, but at the same time, those people who are in charge from the conservative governments are allowing for the left to have a voice, for the left to have mini battles and victories, which is then causing a divide and a conflict within society. And that society is being played out sometimes very viciously and sometimes even in violence. Then what happens is that the elite, they seclude themselves and they sit back and allow this whole jumble within society to exist. And this is exactly the way of shaitan, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it in Surah Ibrahim. مَا أَنَا بِمُصْرِخِكُمْ وَمَا أَنْتُ بِمُصْرِخِي. I just called you to do something and I am not able to protect you and you are not able to protect me. I just stepped back. I just gave you that option and I stepped back and you guys ended up destroying yourselves. And this is part of what's happening as well in Muslim countries. So they're saying, look, we've got a conservative religious government, but they're allowing a lot of this liberal left to come in, and that's frustrating us. And society is, confused. It's happening everywhere. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in this country. It's happening in Muslim countries. It's happening all across Europe. It's happening in Asia. It's happening absolutely everywhere. And the reason why is because these people, the people who are calling to governance, who are calling to be elected, are calling to themselves. They're calling for their own profit. They're calling for their own gain. When the corruption takes place, they step back and they say, well, I've got nothing to do with it. This is what the people elected. This is what the people chose for. Nothing to do with me. And the reason why is because they know full well that they're causing this rift between the right and the left. And at the center of this is because people are calling to themselves. People are making a mockery and people are taking advantage of the political situation so that they can benefit only just themselves. So many examples, we don't want to name drop anyone, so many examples of what's happened recently, just in the last year even, or last couple of years, since COVID. You can mention so many names in this country and abroad of people who have been found guilty almost and been taken to court of how they've exposed a particular political situation for their own gain. What is the problem? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِ, O Muhammad, say, this is my path. أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ, I call to Allah, عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ, أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَنِي, me and for those who follow me. The ulama of tafsir have said from this ayah, if you call to Allah, you will be on the sabil, you'll be on the correct path. But if you don't call to Allah, you are only calling to yourself, you're only calling to your desires, you're only calling to your political group. And when you do that, there is no path. وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّونَكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, if you were to follow most of the people on earth, it would take you away from that sabil. أَفَحُكْمُ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ يَبْغُونَ, do they seek the hukm of jahiliyyah? وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ مِنَ اللَّهِ حُكْمًا لِقَوْمٍ يُوقِنُونَ, is there anyone better in legislation and judgment than Allah for those people who have certainty that this is the right path? أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِحَكِمِ الْحَاكِمِينَ, isn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the best of judges? Therefore, whenever there is an issue that needs to be resolved, it can only be solved by قال الله قال الرسول. فإن تنازعتم في شيء, if you differed in something, in aqidah, in fiqh, in politics, فردوه إلى الله ورسوله إن كنتم تؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر, return it back to Allah and His Messenger if you believe in Allah and the last thing. ذلك خير وأحسن تأويلا, this is the best interpretation, this is the best end. With some of the ulama with ta'wila, they have said that this is the final destination, which will be the greatest, this will be the greatest outcome. Therefore, the outcome from the politics that we are seeing in the world today, in this country, with the lack of response, with what's happening in the Middle East, etc., all of this is happening because there is something actually happening in the political movement which is afflicting and affecting every single country that I can think of, almost. Because there are people there in charge who are allowing the right wing and the conservative call to rise, and they've been given the platform for a very long time in a lot of these countries, whilst the left, the liberal left, are getting frustrated, and it's causing this imbalance within society. And for the people who have created that rift, once the rift has been created, once the fitna has been sowed, they step back. And in every single one of these scenarios, they have gained self-advancements for themselves, politically, financially, to the end of the list. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He protects us from fitan, ma dhahara minha wa ma batan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us insight, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives rectification to this ummah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the ability to see haqq as haqq and follow it, and that He gives us the ability to see batil as batil and stay away from it. هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله على محمد.